Your thought here with this back and forth. The president says there's no reason to get on a plane right now because there's no evidence of a breakthrough. Do we roll through the weekend with the standoff in place?
Hard to know, Joe. I mean, it's clear that we are at a diplomatic stalemate. No peace, no war. As you note, the strait remains closed. And it seems as though we're witnessing a battle of wills. But that being said, we also know that the president did receive military options from CENTCOM yesterday. And there is some discussion as to whether the president may choose to go with some fierce but limited military strikes in the hope of breaking this diplomatic stalemate and getting Iran to the table. Big question as to whether that would work or not. But I think that is something that's at least is under consideration.
Well, so Mona, what do you think is most likely to get the will of Iran to bend or break at this point? Because we saw weeks and weeks of kinetic military action, of targeted strikes across a lot of their military infrastructure and the like. Didn't seem to do much. Now we see this blockade, and U.S. Central Command just says 45 commercial vessels have been redirected at the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump has talked about Iran as being on almost at a state of economic collapse. Is that what is more likely to make them bend, or are they relatively willing to withstand both types of pain, frankly?
Unfortunately, Kayleigh, I think what we've seen is that Iran's pain threshold is pretty high. And yes, their economy is on the verge of collapse. The rial is at an all-time low. They've had significant damage done. And of course, now their oil exports are also being impeded. So it's not as though they are not experiencing pain, but they are signaling defiance. The Supreme Leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, just issued a statement basically saying Iran is not going to relinquish control over the Strait of Hormuz, nor is it going to deal on the nuclear issue at this time. And so I think this is a question of who can endure pain the longest? And of course, caught in the middle of all of this are global markets and countries in Asia, in Europe, that are feeling this pain much more directly even than we are here in the United States.
We've got a new debate surrounding the War Powers Act, Mona. As I'm sure you've heard, the White House is suggesting that we are not at war right now. Therefore, the 60 days that would be marked today under the War Powers Act and requiring some action by Congress to let the president move forward simply does not apply. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, said in a congressional testimony yesterday that the days of ceasefire count against the 60-day mark. Other reporting by the New York Times, quoting officials at the White House, saying that the ceasefire resets the clock. I asked Leon Panetta about this last evening. Of course, among his many roles, he was a defense secretary in the Obama administration. Here's what he said about it.
I understand that the president's trying to raise the threat threshold to try to move Iran, but I don't think that's what's going to do it. The president does have the power to extend the War Powers Act for an additional 30 days if he can show that it's part of an effort to wind down the war. If that were part of it, then perhaps that could be an approach. But I think in and of itself, I'm not sure that it does.
What do you make of this, Mona? The president says that the War Powers Act is totally unconstitutional. Those are the words he used this morning. Are we going to just blow right through these deadlines?
Well, it's hard to know. This is a very unpredictable administration. And beyond Secretary Panetta, there are former officials in Republican administrations who also take issue with the administration's interpretation of a ceasefire, allowing a pause on the clock. Right. But, regardless, I think the issues really are around the tolerance for this war continuing. We've talked about higher prices at the gas pump. The administration itself says the war has cost $25 billion so far. Many believe that the number is much higher, maybe 2 or 3 times higher. So beyond the legal and constitutional issues of the War Powers Resolution, which indeed does come into effect today as we hit the 60-day mark, there are the bigger questions of America's tolerance for this war and, frankly, a lack of understanding of exactly what the objectives are and what the president's plan is for an off-ramp.
So as we consider domestic tolerance for this, Mona, do you think that there may be merit in Iran potentially thinking that it can just wait out President Trump on this one due to those domestic political pressures?
I think the Iranians very likely feel that time is on their side, that they don't have these kinds of domestic pressures, right? This is a very brutal regime with little regard for its people. They are keenly aware of the pressures that the president is feeling at home, including that this is an election year. And so it may well be, as I said earlier, that this is a battle of wills. And Iran believes it's in a position that it can win that battle of wills, that it can outlast the United States.
So it sounds like we kind of know where this is going then. And if Iran is not going to negotiate around its nuclear capabilities, what is there to talk about?
Well, I mean, what there is to talk about is getting the strait back open and having traffic resume. We are seeing this incredible price that is being paid in global markets, and we haven't even begun to see.
Can you have one without the other? Can we reopen the strait without a guarantee?
Well, unfortunately, I think that's what the Iranians are banking on. That is certainly what they've been proposing. Let's deal with the strait first, and of course, open the strait. What does that mean? Does Iran have some sort of administrative control over the strait? That's the complexity of the conflict as it stands right now. And I think, again, it really comes down to how much, frankly, the world can endure the strait essentially remaining closed. We're 60 days into this conflict. It's already exacted an enormous cost. And we also know that this war has a very long tail, that even if the strait were to open tomorrow, we're talking months before things get back to something that appears close to what it was before, some sort of normal.